Should you do cardio before or after you work out? Should you do cardio before or after you work out? This question comes up a lot amongst athletes and average gym goers alike. I hope the answer to this question does not surprise you. It depends. Well, that's it. That's the video. Leave us a thumbs up if you like the video. Let us know what you think about it in the comments section below. Subscribe to our channel. Just kidding. I'm not going to leave you high and dry like that. I'm here to paint a clear picture that will give you the tools to answer the cardio question for yourself.
So let's start by establishing some key points to help guide our session. First off, pure speed training is not the same as conditioning, and conditioning is not synonymous with cardio. Speed and cardio are two of many types of conditioning. Generally speaking, if we are training for speed, we should always train for speed after we warm up effectively and before we work out. Speed requires a ton of neural drive, and our nervous system is only capable of this high output during a narrow window, after an effective warm-up and before strenuous work. This is our Goldilocks time slot for speed. After this brief window, our nervous system will not fire rapidly enough for us to make appreciable improvements in speed. We can still train at high intensity, but not quite high enough for speed. Bottom line, train speed and other explosive movements when you're the freshest, if your intent is to improve your rate of force development. That's all we'll say about speed in today's video. I'm a strength coach and felt it needed to be addressed, but it's not the main concern for this session. So what is conditioning? Conditioning comes in various forms and occurs along a spectrum based on duration, intensity, and rest between sets. When I say conditioning, I mean training an energy-producing system in the body. Our body has three distinct systems that it uses to supply energy at the cellular level. These systems are always working in conjunction at any given time, but our duration, intensity, and rest periods will dictate which system is dominant during a given session. Typically, we hear the term cardio, and our mind jumps to specific activities like running, cycling, and swimming. These are steady-state activities that elevate the heart rate. Activities like these are meat and potatoes aerobic training, but aerobic training is not specific to any particular exercise. We can actually make most exercises aerobic. So, aerobic training, our first stop on the conditioning spectrum, can include upper, lower, and total body exercises and is not necessarily steady state. The term aerobic is referring to aerobic metabolism. This is where our body uses oxygen molecules in the breakdown of carbs, fats, and proteins in a series of chemical reactions to supply energy or ATP to our cells so we can conduct our activity. Our body relies more heavily on the aerobic system when our activity is longer in duration and consequently lower in relative intensity. As a general rule, when activity exceeds 2 minutes in duration, our aerobic system begins to pick up its contribution to our body's energy demands. So, aerobic training can be any exercise that is performed for longer durations. We can influence our aerobic system more by making our rest period short and making our work to rest ratio bigger. For instance, working for 3 minutes and resting for 1 minute, a work to rest ratio of 3:1. This would be training our oxidative energy system. As we move away from the aerobic side of the spectrum, we enter into anaerobic waters. Dense and devoid of oxygen, deprived monsters lurk in the depths, devising an attack, a quick strike you can't see coming. This type of training is in fact where monsters are made. Anaerobic training is performed at higher intensity levels and consequently shorter intervals. The higher intensity of these exercises stimulates our body to produce energy at a rapid rate that our aerobic system cannot keep up with. During anaerobic metabolism, our body generates energy without the use of oxygen to meet the demands of our intense activity. This occurs in two primary systems: the glycolytic or lactic anaerobic system and the phosphogen or alactic anaerobic system. Again, our intensity, duration, and rest will determine which is most active. The fast glycolytic system utilizes sugar in the form of glucose or glycogen to produce energy in the absence of oxygen. It uses a fermentation process called lactic acid fermentation. Hence, this system is sometimes called the lactic anaerobic system. Lactic acid is a byproduct of the chemical reactions that occur within the cytoplasm or sarcoplasm of the cell. Activities that cause this system to increase its contribution are higher in intensity and consequently shorter in duration. A general rule is that this system is dominant during intense activities that last between 15 and 60 seconds. We can influence this system by making our rest periods longer and our work-to-rest ratio smaller. For instance, working for 15 seconds and resting for 90 seconds, a work-to-rest ratio of 1:6.
You have now reached your destination.
Our last stop along the spectrum truly freaks me out. Freaky phosphogen, flicker flashes fade quick. A violent ambush when the time is right. Keep one eye open in the twilight. Our phosphogen system supplies energy at the quickest rate of any system. We signal this with activities performed at our highest intensity levels and consequently our shortest intervals. Training in this range occurs in rapid bouts followed by long rest intervals. In this range, the body supplies immediate energy but in limited amounts. We are only capable of maintaining this rate for so long before our intensity lowers and our energy supply shifts. So to stay in this range, a general rule is to train these exercises for up to and under 10 seconds followed by long rest periods of 2 minutes or more. Work to rest ratios between 1 to 12 to 20. We can think of conditioning here as speed conditioning or power conditioning. Utilizing this system, the body supplies energy using creatine phosphate and stored ATP, the energies our cells are after. This system is so brief that there is no lactic acid produced, why this system is also called the alactic anaerobic system.
Now that we have a better understanding of energy systems and what we mean when we say conditioning, let's learn how to apply that information to answer the question, should you do cardio before or after you work out? By now you should realize that the question is flawed. A better question is, should you do conditioning before or after you work out? To answer this question, we need some context.
We need to understand the goals of our training. If we are an athlete training for an upcoming season, additional training outside of our lifting sessions may be needed to develop skills and an energy profile optimal for game performance. If we are an average gym goer trying to get shredded, we likely don't need the same conditioning level as an athlete to develop the muscle profile we are after. In fact, diet will likely be more important than conditioning if we are seeking body recomposition. But what if we just want to build muscle and stay fit? We must approach each of these situations individually. First of all, we should realize that our lifting session is a type of conditioning that falls along the spectrum. That's right. Resistance training is the type of conditioning that can occur at any point along the spectrum. We just have to look at our set intensity, duration, and our rest periods to understand where along the spectrum we are training. Resistance training can benefit any of the qualities we want to improve: speed, power, strength, hypertrophy, endurance, flexibility, and mobility. That means that we can get cardio benefits from weights without face planting on a treadmill. We should also realize that activities such as warming up, walking, and stretching are aerobic in nature, and they contribute to our cardiovascular fitness levels. With those revelations, we can see that with consistent and periodized resistance training, paired with effective warm-ups, regular walking, and stretching, we can develop each of our energy systems over time. Now the question splits into two parts. Do I need additional conditioning outside of my resistance training? And if so, do I do it before or after I work out? Again, if we pepper in some context, we can answer this question. If you're an athlete, you will likely need additional conditioning outside of resistance training if you want to improve your performance. We will influence many of these qualities with resistance training, but will also include specific conditioning before or during weights to improve your explosiveness, after weights to challenge you in a fatigue state, and or in a separate training session altogether. And this will depend on the sport, position, block of training, and time of year as it relates to your season, as well as your individual training history and fitness levels. If you're someone like me who likes to challenge their fitness levels, but also maintain muscle mass, you'll likely include conditioning on a specific day of training as the main part of the session. The type of conditioning will match the demands of the current block of training. For example, if you're in a base of fitness or metabolic block, you design conditioning that is more aerobic to match resistance training that is more aerobic. High reps, low resistance, short rest. If you're in a hypertrophy block of training, you condition in more of a glycolytic range. And if you're in a strength or power block, you train for conditioning in short bursts with long rest to match your strength training. I'm a proponent of block training because of its potency. The concentrated approach of block training is quite effective for driving specific adaptations, but I realize that other more balanced approaches can still be effective. With a balanced approach, I'd advocate for separate training days for the average gym goer, especially if the sessions occur at opposite ends of the spectrum, such as power training paired with long-distance running in the same session. The body sends specific adaptive responses to stress based on the stress profile of a workout. If our stress profile is all over the map, instead of very specific, the body responds with a watered-down response across all measures. The body cannot devote all of its resources to one specific stress, and therefore each stressor is suboptimally adapted. This is akin to multitasking, where the brain's focus is partially distributed to each task, rendering each task suboptimal. Separating our training sessions allows for better adaptation over time and is less likely to cause excessive fatigue and overtraining. But what about someone whose focus is to maximize their lean tissue and minimize fat, while maintaining their fitness? This person likely doesn't need additional conditioning if they warm up, walk, and stretch regularly. They would benefit from periodizing their resistance training to train across the full spectrum of muscle and energy development, but extra conditioning is not necessary to achieve their physique goals. The most effective approach for these folks is to optimize their nutrition for lean mass accretion and/or fat mass reduction. If you're someone who falls into this category but still insists upon additional conditioning, I'd say do it on a separate training day as the main focus of the session, or in a separate session on the same day, before or after, but with enough time for nutrient intake between sessions. If you have to get it in the same session, do it at the end of the session. The simple reason for conditioning at the end is that we want to optimize muscle and strength. We optimize our training priorities by training them when we're the freshest. So we should start with stimulating our muscles and nervous system when we're the freshest and before breakdown and degradation occur as our training session unfolds. This way our catabolic state is closer to our nutrient intake following the session.
Hopefully this video helps you design better workouts that lead to your goals. Please leave us a thumbs up if you liked the video, and feel free to suggest topics for future videos. Stay tuned and subscribe to our channel. In an upcoming video, I'm going to break down a resistance training session that requires no extra conditioning and is guaranteed to boost your aerobic metabolism without treadmill torture. See you soon.